Well, I'm so glad to see all of you here tonight, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about myself. Some of you have heard about me before and have watched me campaign, but I wanted to give you a little bit more background into what makes Elizabeth Scott Elizabeth Scott. Who is Bitsy Scott? And some of you already know my nickname is Bitsy. I was born and raised on a farm in central Illinois and came out here at 18 to go to Seattle Pacific University. And after obtaining my first degree in linguistics and English Lit, a minor in English Lit, I worked as a nanny for a couple years, and then I went overseas to teach English as a foreign language. I taught in China right after the Tiananmen Massacre. That's part of what makes me who I am. For 2 years, I lived under hard tyranny. I lived in Tianjin, which is 2 hours east of Beijing, and all of my students had participated in the demonstrations in Tiananmen Square. Some of them had seen their friends or their siblings killed. My room was bugged, my phone was bugged, my mail was opened. Sometimes page 2 in a letter from my dad would be missing. The packages were opened. And my students were lied to. We had guards at the end of the hallway to our dorm rooms who lied to our students and said we didn't want to see them. We were followed in the markets and we had to ask permission to leave the city. We had to carry 3 pieces of ID with us at all times. The red card, the yellow card, and the white card. Tonight I brought for you my red card. It's a national ID. It gave me permission to be in the country. The citizens of China carried a red card, and all the foreigners who were living and working there carried a red card at all times. It has my picture, my weight, back then, my height, which is still the same, the place where I worked, and I'm not really sure what else, because I can't read all the Chinese characters on it. In addition to this card, I had to carry the yellow card, which was my health card. Yes, health care was free, if you could get it. The foreigners like me, brought 3 hypodermic needles with us everywhere we went because we knew that the needles in China were being reused again and again and again. That's what nationalized health care can end up giving you. Reused needles. We talk about worrying about health care being budgeted, seniors and disabled being put away with before their time, but it will affect everyone. After 2 years in China, I came back and did my master's degree at Southern Illinois University, and then I went overseas to pay it off. This time I went to the United Arab Emirates, where I lived under soft tyranny. In the Emirates, we were very close to Saddam Hussein. He was just a stone's throw away. And I became pregnant my second year teaching there, and I remember worrying, thinking, we always had 2 escape plans. When I was in China and in the Middle East, you know, the embassy told us, have a couple of escape plans, different routes, just in case. Well, when you're in a desert that's 130 degrees, and you've got Saudi Arabia on one side, and the Gulf of Oman, Persian Gulf, bordering the other sides, what are your options exactly when you're pregnant? And I remember thinking, I guess I really should be praying that if there's going to be an attack, I pray that it happens while I'm pregnant, so that I won't have to worry about keeping my baby quiet. And it made me think of that last episode of MASH. Do you remember that? Who could forget it? So it's things like that that made me who I am today. It's things like that that give depth to my understanding of our Constitution, our federal Constitution, our state Constitution. Our state Constitution has been alluded to several times tonight, and since I'm running for state rep in the 39th District, which by the way is from Monroe out to Sultan, Gold Bar Index, and it goes all the way up to Cedro-Woolley and Concrete. It includes most of Arlington, a big piece of Marysville, Darrington, Granite Falls. It's a large area. But it all comes down to representing the people. The preamble of our Washington State Constitution says this, and I want you to keep in mind God and country. We, the people of the state of Washington, grateful to the supreme ruler of the universe for our liberties, do ordain this Constitution. Why are we even discussing this? It's not an issue. It's a non-issue. It's written into our state and federal constitutions. God gave us our liberties, period. Thank you. We should not be ashamed to talk about where our liberties came from. And if people say, oh, you're mixing God and country, you pull out your constitutions. You can get this little paper one, you can print it off online, or you can get this down in the bookshop down at the state capitol in Olympia. I highly encourage you to get one, carry it around with you. I know a lot of you are carrying your U.S. constitutions in your pocketbooks, aren't you? I am. I have been for 3 years. And I bet you almost, all right, I want to ask, how many of you have one that you carry around all the time? See, I knew it. If you don't have one, get one. You can get it free at heritage.org, and you can order a bunch of them, get a whole box of them for 50 cents each to hand out to your kids and grandkids and put them in their Christmas stockings. That's what I do. All right, Article 1, the Declaration of Rights, Section 1, political power. All political power is inherent in the people, and governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed and are established to protect and maintain individual rights, as Justice Sanders said. That is why we have government at all, to protect and maintain individual rights. Section 2. Thank you. Supreme law of the land. The Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land, and that's when you pull it out of your pocket and you point to Article 1, Section 8, where there's a very short list of what the federal government's supposed to be in charge of. And then the 10th Amendment says that everything else is left to the states or the people. Teach people. It's not being taught anymore. You know this. Teach people. And then Section 3, personal rights. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. When government takes your property and says you can't use it, or even if they don't act like they're taking it, but they say you can't use it, and they're flying drones over, keeping track of how many trees you have in Thurston County. There are all kinds of ways that they're taking our property, but they need to be calling it a taking and paying for it. If you can't use it, it's not yours anymore. They need to pay for it. I'm just going to point out one more thing. I think the most impressive, well, I've read 2 really good books lately. One is Witness by Whittaker Chambers, which I highly recommend. The communists have been in this country for a long, long time, and we did not learn about it in school. Get Witness by Whittaker Chambers, and you will learn all about what the Communist Party has been up to for the last 100 years in this country. It's everywhere. It's all the way to the top. And it's not a new thing that it's all the way to the top. The second most important book I've read in the last year is Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Martyr, Prophet, Spy by Eric Metaxas. Listen, you know we're in serious times. You sense it. Even if you can't put your finger on it, you sense it, and that's why you're here tonight. If you want to know what to do, not only to fight back, but to stand with courage, I highly encourage that you read Bonhoeffer. It's incredible. And the lesson that Bonhoeffer gives to me is, it doesn't matter what happens on earth in the end. We've read the end of the book. Amen? We win. We win in the end because we stand with Jesus Christ. And so we must do what he calls us to do. And I'll wrap it up with this. Right before I left for China, my mother got down on her hands and knees and cried and begged me not to go. She believed that God had called me to go, but she was terrified for me. And I said, Mom, you're the one who taught me the safest place to be is in the middle of God's will. I have to go. God bless you and God bless America.